Today's live show is sponsored by Uffizzi. Stand up your developer platform in minutes with Uffizzi. The Uffizzi platform provides fast provision Kubernetes clusters for all your dev and testing needs. Every engineer gets self-service, sandboxed virtual clusters. Every team can have centralized management of those clusters. It runs on their infrastructure or yours. Uffizzi has deployment support for Helm, Kustomize, Kubernetes Manifest, and even Docker Compose. Their management platform has features such as sleep mode, time-based deletion, and resource quotas for avoiding overspending. Try their free starter tier today by spinning up your first sandbox cluster in under a minute at uffizzi.com. Hello? Hello? I'm here. It's Thursday. I'm supposed to be live on Thursdays. That's why I do this on Thursdays, because Thursdays are a great day for lives. Except in the United States, every year on a Thursday in November, we celebrate coming together, and we do autumn things. We rake leaves. We cook lots of turkey. If you live in the north, it might be snowing. And I choose to still live stream and be here with you and talk about Kubernetes and Docker and containers. And my family is upstairs and the cooking has just begun. But don't worry, my turkey's in. It's in the middle of cooking and we will quit this show as soon as it's ready. So I'm here and we're going to talk about stuff. Of course, it's Black Friday, so all of my courses are on sale today, tomorrow. And they're even cheaper than the Udemy coupons themselves. So you can get the links for all 4 courses below in case you're new to Docker Kubernetes. If you're just here because you thought you could learn something about that, great. Let's talk about it. Ask me your questions. That's why I'm here. Nirmal is not with me this week. He is having Thanksgiving with his family, as is everyone else in the United States. So I'm here for you. Let's talk about it. Why are you, if you're in the United States, why are you joining me? This show today is brought to you by lots and lots of food. Too much food and football to ever have in one day. And that's what it is to be Thanksgiving here in the U.S. So let's talk about what's going on. KubeCon was just a few weeks ago. I'm writing the newsletter for this week about some stuff that happened at KubeCon, specifically some new APIs that were released from Kubernetes, actually the latest version, but even backported, specifically the Gateway API. We can get all into that if you have questions about that versus ingress and how that's changing inbound connections in Kubernetes clusters. And I have no other agenda. I'm here to help you. So hello, everyone. What's up, Hassan? There's Sultan. Hello. Medium is here. Caesar. Welcome back to Caesar. Happy Thanksgiving. You are most welcome for the courses. And due to the conferences this last couple of months, the new sections I wanted to get out in Docker Mastery won't be till probably next month. So I wanted to get them out this month, worked on them for the last 2 months, and then we got really busy for the holidays and for the conferences. DockerCon, KubeCon, all the cons. What happened in the last 45 days. What's up, Zolt? All right, so what questions would you have from KubeCon? Kubernetes or Kubernetes-related. Did you see the live stream we did a couple of weeks ago from the floor of KubeCon? That was a lot of fun. Nirmal joined me. We're just going to bring that up. So over here, we did a live from KubeCon. And we had our friends. We had James in there, another Docker captain and cloud native ambassador. What else do we have? We had a bunch of people. We had Mike Coleman, formerly of Docker, now is solo. We had Nigel. A lot of you know Nigel Poulton. Great guy. Had him on talking about what he liked and didn't like about the show. What did we have? What else did we have? We had a bunch of other people at the end. Oh, we had Phil actually at the beginning. We had Phil Estes of AWS, formerly of IBM, who is one of the core maintainers of Containerd, which if you've run a container, you've run his code. You've used his code, and he was talking about Finch, a new open source project from AWS. And that podcast, if you're curious, that show is coming out as a podcast tomorrow. So if you follow our podcast, the link is below, or you can just go to bretfisher.com. And that podcast episode will air tomorrow with all those interviews and people. We had Derek in there. Yeah, we had so many people we couldn't get them on the show. So that was a lot of fun. And Kyle's here, and Kyle was also at the show. I am not going to reinvent Kyle. That is the one that I am happy to skip. But I feel like I feel like all my friends are there, so I should go. But it's sometimes with all these back-to-back conferences, and nobody, I don't work for a company that pays for me to be there. So if you'd like to sponsor me, I'm happy to be sponsored to go to a conference with you. But it's a lot for me to swing all those conferences. I do plan to be at KubeCon in Paris. So if you're in the EU and you are going to be at KubeCon this year or next year, I hope to see you there. And we'll do a little selfie like we did. Oh, did we have the picture up? Not sure if we did a KubeCon newsletter. So over at Bret.news, I have my newsletter. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we did all these selfies, group selfies, and it was a lot of fun. And I would love to do more of those in Paris and see all you wonderful people. So that's the newsletter. In case you didn't know, you can find out what's on this show, who's on this show, what we're doing, all the guests, what's coming up on the podcast, what content I'm releasing, what new thing I like in Docker or Kubernetes. You can join Bret.news and free newsletter every week. It's very short, actually. I feel like it's short. I don't review the news of the internet. That is not my newsletter. So there's plenty of great tech newsletters out there. By the way, there's a great one called Pragmatic Engineer. That's a great one. Thank you to Laura Taco, Docker Captain, who I might see in Paris, but she actually recommended that one to me, and that is a power-packed newsletter. If you're wanting some of the deep sort, I wouldn't call it investigative reporting, but it's definitely better than blogging. Like it's definitely better than someone just blogging a random topic. Gergely and I don't know if they have a team or what, but there's a lot of people that are fans of that one, and he's got tens of thousands, I think, in subscribers. So that's a good one. Of course, there's lots of other newsletters, but so my newsletter is strictly about what content and things I'm doing in my ecosystem. So it's not necessarily about things I read, although that sometimes happens. But usually it's about things I'm doing, things I'm experiencing. So it's more specific to my happenings. So like whatever we release a podcast every week. We have a live show every week. So there's lots of stuff going on that I report about in there. So please join the newsletter and keep up. All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. I am here for your questions. So let's get started. As I was saying, I've recently been updating the Docker Mastery course. Some new sections are coming out on advanced Docker file usages. So advanced commands in Docker files, maybe some of the advanced options you're not aware of, and then starting to get into Docker file front ends, which is essentially the latest features in Docker files. And it's a way for you to ensure that you're Docker files take advantage of all the latest Docker features, not just the ones that were released a decade ago. So that's coming in Docker Mastery, and some more multi-stage stuff in there. So that'll hopefully be next month. I was planning on that being this month, but that's not going to happen this month. We did release, in case you're a Docker Mastery student, we did release some new stuff in August, I think July or August, around using GitHub Actions and the official Docker GitHub Actions to build and push your containers. So you can just jump over to my GitHub and get a lot of those examples, but you can also watch me go through them in the course. But a lot of the examples are free over on my GitHub. So you can jump over to github.com/Bret Fisher, and there's a whole bunch of GitHub Actions, Docker builds. There's some super linter stuff. So I'm a big fan of all repos need some linting. And super linter is my go-to for that to get started. And it has 50 plus linters that you can selectively turn on or off. And it's pretty great. I have a little example there. I have actually videos about it in this channel. But there's a whole bunch of examples, and that stuff is now in the Docker Mastery course. So if you haven't been in the Docker Mastery course that you bought years ago, because it's going on 7 years old, it keeps getting updated and it keeps getting new videos. So you can go check that out. Caesar, what's up? Call for DevOps opinion. For 2024, what would be the best tool for running local Kubernetes clusters? I'm starting in the process of migrating some services from on-prem to cloud. Thanks in advance. So I think, to me, I prefer Docker Desktop. It's an all-in-one tool. It has more features than everything else out there. And I pay for the license. And Docker now, I think, actually gives captain's licenses, but I was paying for it for myself. I work with multiple teams every year that all pay for Docker Desktop. You don't always have to pay for it. It's just if you're at a large company. And that's, to me, Docker Desktop is still the most full-featured solution for Docker and Kubernetes. If you want specific things in Kubernetes, like you want to be able to throw in a bunch of custom controllers in your local machine that are maybe dealing with storage or advanced networking, some CNI plugins and stuff, then Docker Desktop is not the one for you if you want to do that. It will do all the basics, and I rarely need those other things. But if you're wanting to test out various Kubernetes deployments and you're a cluster admin, then you probably don't want to do that. You probably could look at Rancher Desktop, which is a little more Kubernetes focused, or do something like, maybe not KCD, because not KCD, sorry. Kind, like stuff like that is a little weird because it's Kubernetes in Docker. But in case you needed a spreadsheet and you were curious about all the different ways you could run Kubernetes locally and Docker, I have a spreadsheet. So actually bret.show/ddalt. So I have a spreadsheet that keeps track of all of the different options for running Docker and Kubernetes locally. It's really focused around making sure you can run containers locally, regardless of your OS. So it ranks, it's kind of ranked a little bit from the most features to the least features. That is not true anymore, though. We've got Colima and OrbStack down at the bottom. I think I need to probably add Finch in here. Finch is a new one, although technically Finch is really just an overlay on nerd control. So it's maybe I can just add it in there as a combo thing. I'll put it here for now. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I want to add one row. So Finch is a new project from AWS, and it's really just for installing nerd control, containerd, and some other tooling on your local machine. I think it today maybe only works on Mac. But that's a list. And Docker Desktop and Rancher Desktop are at the top of it. And then there's all sorts of other great options depending on what you need to do. You can see through the feature set how many of them support Kubernetes, how many of them support the Kubernetes load balancer, which is a networking thing. How many of you can you control can you control the Kubernetes version? Can you Can you run it in QEMU where you can run different architecture containers? Does it have a GUI management feature? So if you are someone who knows a lot of these tools, you can make comments. So anyone can make comments on this sheet, and then I will research those comments. So maybe you know that a feature is supported in something like K3D, and you want to put it there. For example, maybe you figured out that K3D can run on Slackware, for example. So you can throw a comment in there, and I will research it. I'm not an expert on all these different ways to run Docker and Kubernetes. You can see that many of them can run Kubernetes, this column M. So I would say look into those. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, Caesar. So you shouldn't have to experiment with all of them. I would honestly, I would do things like, if it was me, I would be skipping Minikube. I would skip Podman, and I would skip things like Vagrant and MicroK8s. You have to run it on a Linux machine, so there's a thing where like you can use multipass if you wanted to use multi-node. I don't know that really any of these built out of the box with multi-node Kubernetes. So if you want to experiment with multi-node Kubernetes, and honestly, my opinion is for local testing and learning, there's really no reason for multi-node unless you're doing things like you want to do node requirements or things that are specific. You want to change settings on a specific node and experiment with scheduling, with taints and stuff like that, then that's maybe one of the reasons why I would run multi-node locally, which I rarely need to do. But if you need to do that, the way I like to do that is multipass, which was just on the show weeks ago. If you go back, don't do this now, but later, go back to my channel, and we recently had, very recently, I thought it was recently. Yeah, multipass right here. So 2 months ago. So we had multipass on the show. I've been using multipass for years. It's great. And multipass just gives you Ubuntu VMs really fast. Like you can spin one up in seconds, and then you can do whatever you want on it. So I like that approach because the reality is if you're going to be a cluster person, if you're moving your infrastructure to the cloud from on-prem, then it sounds like you're probably the Kubernetes admin, the Kubernetes cluster organizer or operator. And that's a different role than most developers. Most developers don't have to know how to manage and deploy Kubernetes. Now, if you're in the cloud, I will say just use the cloud's provided Kubernetes. Whatever cloud you're in, I hope they have their own Kubernetes. Just use theirs. They're going to be better at managing the Kubernetes, and it's less work for you, and it's often faster, better design. So I don't recommend you install VMs in EC2 and manually deploy Kubernetes. That's probably not what you should be doing in the cloud. But if you need to do some of that management of Kubernetes, then you could do multipass locally. You install multiple multipass VMs. You give them, at least each one of them gets like 8 gig of RAM or something, or at least 4 gig. And then you can put them all in a Kubernetes cluster, and that's when you can choose your Kubernetes distribution. You might choose a different one for on-prem or local. You might choose something like K3D, which is in here. Actually, K3S is what you would install in multipass. K3S, a very minimal Kubernetes distro. I like MicroK8s, which is down here in line 13. I like MicroK8s for local use. I even know companies that are using it in production for small deployments in 3 to 5 node clusters in their organization. They use MicroK8s every day, and it works great in production on Ubuntu. So for me locally, when I want 3 different Kubernetes VMs, I use multipass to create the VMs, and then I use MicroK8s on each one of them, and it's very easy to install additional nodes. It comes with a lot of features that you can add kind of like plugins right out of the box. You can just enable them, like load balancing and storage and whatnot. And those things don't require that you go and get Helm charts and do all that work. So I like MicroK8s. I almost missed this question. Hassan Preet. Hopefully I pronounced that close to correct. New to the channel, can I start as a fresher in DevOps field? I'm practicing DevOps from some time now, but still no field experience. What steps should you get to take a job? Well, we actually had some great episodes. We had an episode last year on this channel with Brian Christner, another Docker captain, and he runs. He's basically the CTO of a tech company and hires lots of engineers. And we had lots. He had lots of advice for that. So after this show, if you go here back to our channel and you search, let's see. I'm just gonna. Yeah, so there we go. DevOps, SRE, and traffic. So this is a show 2 years ago. And it really was 2 years ago? That seems like such... No. It must... There we go. Here's 5 DevOps skills to boost your job profile. So this is the one. So look up show 187 later. That's a bunch of advice. And I also have my own little opinion on the ways to approach learning DevOps, the ways to get into DevOps. I mean, really, if you don't have experience, the certifications are the only real way to prove that you know these tools. So you're going to have to overcompensate by getting certifications. And that, let me just bring that up. My little, yay, API limits. All right, I'll pull that up in a minute. That very long blog post and that link I just put up there, that's a GitHub series of thoughts around what you should be focused on first. You should focus on the operating system, get a Linux certification, get a networking certification, and to get a cloud certification. Those are the 3 things to prove you know infrastructure, at least the basics of infrastructure. OS, Linux, networking like Network Plus, or really a cloud networking one. So if you're going to focus on a cloud and you don't know which cloud, then choose AWS. If you know in your area, then the jobs you're looking for, the most popular people that you're searching for jobs on, if they're all using AWS, and that is the biggest, in parts of the world, AWS maybe isn't the most popular. So choose whatever that cloud is and get at least one certification, ideally more than one, to prove your expertise. So that's the only way I know, and that's what I did. I came in the 90s, I came out of the military, and I had experience, but I was worried I couldn't get the job. So in order to get the sysadmin job, I went and got over a dozen certifications in, I think, around like 2 or 3 years. And I got a Cisco one. I got, back then it was Microsoft, right? So I got Microsoft ones, a whole bunch of Microsoft Windows Server. And, back then it wasn't even Windows XP. I mean, we were pretty early days. But then I got a network one. And I got a lot of stuff that related to what I wanted to go get a job in. Web servers. I got certifications in web servers and stuff like that. And then I went and got a security certification from SANS, which is a great organization. The SANS Institute, a great security company, a nonprofit organization. I believe they're nonprofit. And they're great. I had such a wonderful experience getting a certification from them. It was the first time I had to do an essay for a certification, and then they graded it and provided me feedback. And I basically had to prove I knew what I was talking about. And it wasn't just an online test. So check that out if you're interested in security stuff. Obviously, DevSecOps is also great. Even if you're not trying to be a security expert, getting a couple of security certifications to show you know the very basics, like a Security Plus certification or a SANS certification, or on your cloud of choice, getting their security certification, that's bonus. That's a huge bonus because a lot of teams are struggling with security right now, and they don't have an entire security team, but they need a DevOps person that understands what CVEs are and security scanners for images, and they know about DLLs and different binaries and libraries, and that they understand the operating system and the networking and can apply security like firewall rules or web application firewalls, WAFs, that that stuff. And a lot of times that means you have to know things like TCP packets and HTTP protocols and stuff like that. And that's in the realm of security. These are all related things in DevOps, and there's a lot of different jobs in DevOps. So you can't just go get a DevOps job everywhere for the same thing. I've worked with DevOps teams since the word DevOps was invented, and every team, people have different requirements, different roles. Some people are better at the Linux stuff, so they do more sysadmin. Some people are better at the DevOps of CI, so they know how to do Jenkins and GitHub Actions. Some people in DevOps are more on the SRE side, so they know how to make tooling in production, and they know how to write code, but they know how to make the production systems more reliable and work with developer teams to make better code that's more reliable. So it just depends on where your expertise lies, and if you're getting certifications, just choose something easy to start with. One certification for each topic: one OS, one networking, one cloud. Then later, you can worry about Docker and Kubernetes certifications. But you want to get that fundamental layer of proving you know the cloud. Terraform is a very important skill. And so if I was going to hire you in DevOps, I would look you up on GitHub. Even if you're not a developer, I'm going to go to GitHub and I'm going to look you up, and I'm going to look at your profile and see what you're working on. See what things you're playing with. Are you writing blog posts? Do you have an understanding of these things? And you prove your understanding by putting stuff into your GitHub profile, by contributing to other open source repositories that you're interested in. It's got to be something you're interested in. And then that you write about it. Write about blogs, make your own blog, or write on a different blog. There's lots of places that will pay you to blog. And just do that. And you will have hopefully a nice little profile like what I have. What I don't want to see is an empty profile with nothing in it, right? I want to see that you have a bunch of repos and that you're playing with Terraform, that you're playing with Kubernetes YAML, that you're learning various infrastructure and DevOps things. Maybe you're showing Terraform for how to build a Kubernetes cluster in AWS. So you're proving that through your open source work. And maybe you write a wonderful little README that shows people how to use that repo. So a key thing that I always look for in DevOps engineers is not how much they know, it's how much they share. Because in a team environment, and if you're getting hired as a DevOps person, you're probably going to be working in a team. And in a team environment, it's very much about how much you're willing to help others and how much you're able to share your knowledge, because we all are overwhelmed. We've got too many tools. So you can have like walkthroughs like this that I do in my sample repos and help the world out. Teach the world what you know, and your employers will see that before the interview. I'm sure they're going to look that up. They're going to Google you. They're going to look up your LinkedIn. And so if you don't have LinkedIn experience, you have to replace that with putting a bunch of stuff on GitHub and showing off your work, showing off your homework, essentially. So, all right, that's enough on that question. Great question, though. Thank you. Luth, what is the current price? What are the current prices of my courses right now? It depends on where you are. Udemy prices are different in every part of the world. In the United States, those are $10, or they're around $10 in the United States, but they're different prices in each region. So it just depends on where you're coming from. What you want to do is you just want to go down in this YouTube Live, scroll down to the description and click the link, and it'll tell you the price right there that those prices are. So thanks for that. And I hope you purchase one. That's why I do this. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some Finch stuff, Kyle, at reInvent, and I'm right now, my friends Nirmal and Phil are both prepping for reInvent, just like you. It sounds like, and they're gonna. I'm sure that Phil's gonna have. In fact, I think I talked to Phil about his Finch talks, but I don't know if they got Windows support out yet, but I know they were working on it. And we're gonna have Phil on the show next year for Finch, which is this new AWS project for purely open source local containers. So let's go look that up real quick. Yeah, so just a couple of days ago, hot off the presses, Phil and Chris Short. Chris, I need you on the show. We were trying to figure out what topics to have Chris Short on the show for, but he needs to get back to me. I'll bug him later. It's Thanksgiving. Nobody else is working but me. All right, so Finch is this open source tool, and it combines Lima, Nerd Control, Containerd, and BuildKit. So it's kind of a best of all the open source tooling for local container stuff. And we're going to have one of the project, I'm not sure if he's a maintainer or what his title is. Phil is a principal engineer at AWS, but I'm not sure exactly his role in Finch, other than talking about it all the time. So you can go find YouTube videos on Finch. He'll probably be talking about it. Kyle's asking, do we plan on doing anything dedicated to minimal container images? I noticed that even pretty knowledgeable engineers struggle with using kube control debug. Yeah, so we actually, yes, more of those. I have nothing on the books for the next few months specifically. We've had Slim AI on the show. We've had Wolfie Images on the show, specifically a whole episode about Wolfie Images last year and Slim AI last year. And there will be more of that. I'd like to do a show on Docker's new debug command once that I'd like to wait for them to maybe get their Kubernetes support, because it sounds like that's coming soon. And then, of course, there's the kube control debug. And I feel like Slim Images and debugging almost might be two different shows. It would be hard to fit all that in one show. But yeah, if you have ideas, give me some ideas in wherever Twitter, wherever you want. DM me, Kyle. We're friends on the internet. Go find me somewhere, either in the Discord server or Twitter, LinkedIn, and throw me some ideas. I like. Let's do it. If you've got stuff that you want to show off, I'm game. All right. So by the way, did you know on this show we have a podcast? This episode won't be a podcast, but all the guests we have on, like every other week, they're here. They're on the podcast. So that's at bretfisher.com. Just go grab the podcast or in your favorite podcast player. We also have a newsletter, bret.news. We also have a loot store. Not on sale today, but I wouldn't be surprised if they put stuff on sale tomorrow. We have t-shirts, mugs. You can see stuff below, probably in YouTube. All these are custom designs me and my friends made. My favorite is the SneakerNet shirt, which I had this idea of 80s sneakers and SneakerNet. If you haven't heard that term, it was a term we used in the 90s when you had to literally move your data from this computer to that computer with a floppy or with a USB stick or a CD-ROM, because that was faster than the network. It was to just SneakerNet it. Yeah. So we got all that. And if you didn't know, we have a Discord server right above me. So Discord server over here, whole bunch of people in there. People join every day. As you can see, we got little new people. Colby, welcome if you're on the show. And it's a Discord server on DevOps. So if you have DevOps questions and you don't get them answered today, join us on that Discord server. Neal, the course links are all, I will put them in chat, but they're all below in the description. All my course coupons are on my website. And just make sure you put in the Black Friday coupon, because it's the best one when you do that. But thanks for the question. The double collar shirt? I don't have a double collar shirt. You're talking about, I know, Neil's talking about the KubeCon. Yeah, in KubeCon, my friend James, he bought me one of the shirts from the Kubernetes store. So I wore a shirt on top of my shirt. I mean, who doesn't want two collars? Two collars are so cool. All right. Oh, and Kyle's agreeing on the SAN cert. Sorry, I'm catching up with the slat there. The GIAC also has high quality security certs. You might never answered it, but what if you don't have Kubernetes on your cloud provider and your employer was advised to install it locally with OpenStack, I'm lost because I was assigned that task today. Well, OpenStack's a big product. So if you need to install on-prem, my guess is the most popular 3 distributions, and I always recommend you use a distribution, are probably OpenStack, Rancher, and VMware Tanzu. So those are probably the 3, and it really depends on your vendors. Like, do you already have a vendor relationship with Red Hat? If you do, then OpenStack makes great sense. You would run that in your cloud, and you could run that locally in your data center. And that makes great sense. In fact, Docker Desktop even has an OpenStack extension to help you run OpenStack in Docker Desktop, which I don't even know that was a thing. Like, I didn't know that we would need that, but it turns out it's a pretty popular extension. So I don't really have any advice for you other than learn Kubernetes, which you can do in my courses. That's my recommendation. Good question, Newark. Nice. Thanks, Luth. You get the reggae horn for that. If you buy my courses, you get the reggae horn. Finch plugins. Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool to have sort of extensions and something like that in Finch as well. James is in here. What's up? Just talking about you and my double collar. Glad you stopped by, James. So what do we got? Sinraith? Sorry if I mispronounced that. Could you please guide someone who is learning on the job of the skills of how to start collaborating with the community, GitHub, and how to build a portfolio? So we have an episode for you. This is like my answer now. We're almost at 250 episodes, people. 250. We're about to have 250. We're gonna do something for that. Something for that episode. But if you go back in the channel, so if we search here on the channel for no. Let's look for pizza. Yes. So join the future, contribute to open source. So this is an entire conversation with an expert, B. Dougie. Brian is the CEO of a company called OpenSauced. And we had him on the show to talk about where he used to work and run the DevRel at GitHub. So there's no better expert who studied helping people get into open source, who studied helping people get jobs in DevOps and in open source. And now he has an entire startup about it called OpenSauced. And the whole goal of it is to help you find open source projects that you're interested in. That's a key, that you're interested in, and helping them. Getting started, helping, contributing to open source, and 2, building out your profile so that employers will notice. So you can see all this stuff about they just had a new set of features, a new release on the website a couple of months back. Brian pinged me, and we had a whole episode about it. So later on, go search for this one, Join the Future. It's episode 225. So go check that one out. That will help you. That will help you getting started in the community, helping build out your GitHub. Plus, if you just Google great GitHub profiles or awesome GitHub profiles, you will find a bunch of people teaching you how to, your GitHub profile turns into a little bit of like a homepage for development, DevOps, everything code. So if you go and in my profile, mine's pretty lame, but a lot of things I learned about how to do stuff on my profile page, I learned from awesome GitHub profiles. In fact, let me just see what happens when I search that. Awesome GitHub profile. So yeah, a curated list of awesome GitHub profile readmes. EddieHub is an amazing resource. Who out there is a fan of EddieHub? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up for EddieHub. Eddie has a great community for helping to get started in open source and doing your first commits. So look up Eddie Hub. There's lots of people in that community. Sorry for being late, Martin. You are forgiven. You are forgiven for being late. Thanks for being here on a Thursday, as usual. Nice. Newer bought in 2019. I love it when I meet people that tell me they bought my course early on in the DevOps world. You know, the course released in 2017, and it's been getting updated and growing ever since. And we just crossed 300,000 people who have purchased that course. And I'm very excited about that course. So that's why I keep updating it and keep trying to keep it from breaking, which is so hard to do when there's over 200 videos now. So it's a lot of work, and I have a team that helps me keep it going. So I heard a lot of people at KubeCon who were telling me they got started with my course way back in the early days, and they forgot it launched their career into containers, and that's my favorite part. That's what I love to hear. So thank you for all that, reach out to me and let me know that something I made on the internet helped you. That's always great. Yeah. So this is similar questions for Hassan Preet on getting started on new open source projects. So the trick is, for you specifically, go to that Open Pizza. The open source thing is the way to go. And nice. Thanks for the super chat. I need fireworks for that. I need to figure out something that just shows up on screen, like on Twitch, whenever someone gives a super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And you've transitioned to DevSecOps. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me about DevSecOps. What's your favorite thing of DevSecOps? Sinwraith? Sorry if I mispronounced that. Sinwrath? Srinath? Sorry, I'm messing up the name. But yeah, tell me about the DevSecOps world. So I've worked with a few of them who have dedicated roles as focused on security. I've also worked in teams where we had a DevOps team and a security team, and they basically would come together multiple times a month, and they had a guild. We called it the DevSecOps Guild. So we didn't have a specific title of DevSecOps, but we had multiple people from different groups that all came together to focus on DevSecOps. And really what it was implementing security features in the DevOps workflows. So how can we do more security scans? How can we ensure we don't have high and critical vulnerabilities in production? How do we monitor more metrics and alert on security-related metrics? How do we add security tools like Falco into our clusters? And Falco's been on this show. It's a great security tool, one of a few that I like to always put in my clusters, that it will monitor for bad behavior, like someone starting a shell in a container, which they should probably never do unless you're troubleshooting something, and that's a rare event. So Falco, if you've probably heard of that. If you're in DevSecOps, you've probably heard of things like Falco. You've probably heard of security scanners like Sneak and Docker Scout and Trivy. So that's the stuff that I usually get into when I focus on the security. When and why to choose RPM and deb in Dockerfile. So I'm not sure the question there. It just depends on how you want to install your software. So for example, if you need to install Node.js in an Ubuntu container, then you might pick the Debian, or basically the built-in packager of whatever distribution you're running. Or you might go to the Node.js binaries and actually just download those manually. It just really depends on how you want to do it. And there's not any right or wrong way to get the software on your image. The real goal is to get only the software you need. And sometimes dependencies cause other things to be on the box that don't need to be there. So generally, my guidance is always start with slim images, choose slim, or go check out the Wolfie images, and then You can run tools like Docker, the Slim Toolkit. Used to be called Docker Slim, but the Slim Toolkit. Shout out to Kyle, who's hanging out in chat still. So the Slim Toolkit is something that can help you find the things that you don't need in your images. So if you jump over to slimtoolkit.org, so there's that. And that won't help you get the software installed, but once you've installed the software, that's one of the things that will analyze and help you understand what's in your images and what you might be able to remove. So I think if you're looking at how to get the software in the image, you're probably also looking about how to make sure that you only have the software you need and that you don't bloat your images. So that's a great question. Martin's here asking a question. I have a quick question. Do you still recommend Docker Swarm over the modern Docker Compose for a single node? I watched a few videos where you did. However, it was for Docker Compose. It depends. So Docker Compose has gotten better, and it's now a Go binary that's built in with Docker. So when you install Docker on a Linux host, you normally get Compose now. That wasn't always the case before. And before it was Python, it was a little slower. And there were some quirks around how if it started up on a reboot, whether things would have all of the environment variables and things you needed. So a lot of that stuff has been worked out. If you have a single node, though, and you're interested in things like health checks, and you're interested in like if the container crashes, that it will redeploy a new container every time. Or if you want to do rolling updates, maybe you don't want to have an outage, so you want to take that web server front end and then add the new one first and then remove the old one and have low to no downtime. Thank you. By the way, it's Thanksgiving in the United States, so
You've already said that.
Well, people show up. People show up randomly.
Oh, okay.
And they might. So cheers to you. Happy Thanksgiving. This is my little cider mimosa. So the answer on that really is it still depends. And I still have, in case you've not watched that episode, let's see, Bret, Compose or Swarm. So here is something I will just throw into the chat. If you're curious about Swarm or Compose, I would say in production, I still prefer Swarm because a single node Swarm can still health check and know when my apps are unhealthy and replace them with a healthy container if they go down or they have problems. Obviously, Docker and Compose will restart a container if it crashes, but a lot of times apps may have issues that they don't technically crash, they're just hung up or they're not responding, something like that. And so Swarm does the health checks. Compose does not have an orchestrator or a scheduler built in, so it's not constantly comparing what's in production or what's running versus the declarative of what it's told to run. It's not, Compose doesn't compare those every second and then make decisions like Swarm does. So I still think, and Swarm's getting new features. We just got Swarm features this year. So I still think Swarm is the way to go if you need a single node, easy little thing, and you don't want to try something like K3S, which is also a very small, minimal single node. You can run multi-node, but you can also run a K3S or a micro-K3s setup for Kubernetes. But if you don't want to go full Kubernetes, the Compose file and Docker Compose can work great. So I would say start with Compose, use the Compose file. Then if you need the higher availability or if you want to update without going down, then you go to Swarm. If you want those health checks, go to Swarm, and then eventually consider Kubernetes if you get more advanced and you need more features. If you need more stuff like custom storage or custom networking or something like that, then you would probably have to go to Kubernetes. Cheers. Anton, what's up? Yeah, you've been here before. You're back. Thanks. I appreciate you. What does DevSecOps do that DevOps does not? It's really just people who are in DevOps that are more focused on the security side of things. So it can either be a job or a job role that many people have. And so you're going to be more security focused. You're going to do things like, in the DevSecOps world, you're going to do things like making sure that clusters are monitoring for bad behavior and reporting on specific container or Kubernetes bad behavior, like something like Falco. You're also going to make sure that you have scanners scanning your images before they ever go into production. So in larger teams, there might be someone who is more on the DevSecOps side rather than just DevOps. So if there's a DevOps person or a team and they're maybe dealing with deployments and CI, they're doing the testing and the Docker image building and all that stuff, then the DevSecOps person or the role that's running that will focus more on those security things, like making sure that no images ever go to production servers with high or critical vulnerabilities. And they're basically just doing the security tasks. It's a little bit of a buzzword because, we have all these MLOps, DevSecOps, GitOps. We have all these buzzwords, but really it's just a recognition. It's just recognizing that role is more on the security tooling for containers and DevOps stuff, which largely means automation and monitoring, right? Your observability is a big part of DevOps because you need to be able to measure to know if you're getting better. Is your uptime improving? Is your recovery from failure time improving? Stuff like that. Good question, though. Great question. Oh, yeah. Zap, OWASP, SANS. This is happening in parallel with your RHEL 9 hands-on. Wow. So you are in the thick of it. You're learning a lot of stuff. So it's good that you're getting RHEL or Linux OS experience, because the more you get into security and into ops, the more that Linux matters, the more that Linux expertise matters, because you're going to have to understand networking at a deeper level. How does Linux handle networking? You're going to probably learn about eBPF, because a ton of the security tools are now using eBPF features inside the kernel. So yeah, good stuff. Sounds fun. All right, this is it. Wrapping it up. Last few questions. Get your questions in now, because I'm about to go eat turkey and drink some more mimosa. All right. If you are someone who plans on eating turkey today, raise your hands. Put your hands in chat. Give me a little foxy emoji of some kind. Because I'm about to go eat a whole bunch of turkey and extras. Pumpkin pie, sweet potatoes. James is hand waving away. All right. I'm going to be finishing up in 2 minutes. Anton, maybe. Srinath, I'm gonna say your name every time different. And then one day I'll get one of them right and I'll never know. Thank you all for being here. So in case you didn't know, as we're wrapping up, this is live every week. So if you're still here, come back on Thursdays and get on the newsletter. Go to that. No, not that one. Not that one. That one. Go to that site, sign up for the newsletter, Bret.news, and you'll know who's going to be on the show, who's going to be on the podcast. We've got people in chat that will probably be on this show in the future. James was in this chat. He came by to say hello. He's probably going to be on. Another Docker Captain, Cloud Native Ambassador. Great guy. He has a great channel. Go look up Dive Into James on YouTube, and you'll find some great tutorials on Docker, Kubernetes, all the things. Also, what else? Kyle's probably going to be on the show someday. We need to work that out, figure out some slim stuff, and that'll be fun. What else? Coming up on the show, by the way, let me just read you all the guests we got going on. So coming up on the show here pretty soon, on a future Thursday this year, we're going to have a Docker summary best of 2023. We're going to do that. We're going to do Tailscale next week. Tailscale remote connections to Kubernetes, peerless, or what is their term? Mesh VPN. Anyone? That's Tailscale. They're gonna be on the show next week. We're gonna have Alex on the show. We met him at KubeCon, and Nirmal's gonna be back. And then we're gonna have, let's see, we're gonna have Melissa McKay, another Docker captain, on to have a whole end of year show where we're gonna summarize our favorite tech of the year and our favorite tech that we're looking forward to next year. That's gonna be in December. We've got Olama on the show coming up in the future. Olama is a new LLM tool to help you run your own, basically your own ChatGPT-like experience on your machine with Docker. We're going to do all that with Olama, and they're going to be on the show. I'm excited for that. And we've got so much more. We've got a bunch of Kubernetes projects we're scheduling right now for Harbor, in my opinion, the best private Docker registry that you can run. Harbor, and has tons and tons of features. We're going to have them on the show. We're going to have a lot of CNCF projects on the show. More about Kubernetes. More shows on Docker. We've got a packed schedule coming up. So please join us on Thursdays. And if you can't make it live, then you can always watch it here later on YouTube, or I can't point to the right side to save my life. Over here, you can go to the podcast and you can listen to it in an edited podcast version. Thanks, Christy. Christy is our editor, makes awesome podcasts for your nose. Sorry, not your nose, your ears. You don't have your nose. Your nose has nothing to do with the podcast. It's just your ears. It's ear knowledge. Ear knowledge is what that podcast is about. So come back, and I'm glad you're here. Ooh, we got some last minute questions. What is the best resource to learn networking for a DevOps SRE engineer? Best resource. That's a great question. I have not taken networking courses. I mean, I got all my networking skills in the 90s. So I was reading books and taking certifications on networking in like 1999. So I haven't taken any network courses lately. So if someone else in chat knows about good networking resources that they like, definitely put those in chat to help out Kali. Happy Thanksgiving, Ricardo. Glad you're here. Y'all, is there a tool to get alerts of the running pods which are not responding, or some kind of health check, but in a dashboard fashion? So you're going to want to run monitoring tools. Normally those monitoring tools, it's complicated. There are easy tools that you can get as a PaaS for that. Let's see, one might be Robusta. So go check out Robusta. They were on the show. They do alerts like into, I'm bringing them up here, like into Slack and whatnot. So go check out Robusta. They're one of many tools that can help you. They sort of help with alerting, help with troubleshooting. They analyze different situations and sort of provide you a little bit of intelligence. So I saw them at KubeCon. They were on the show either this year or last year. So go back in this channel and look up the Robusta episode. We talk about it for a whole hour. That's one of the ones I would start with. There are plenty of other ones, but I'll just give you one because we're wrapping it up, keeping it short. What about GitHub Actions? I have a whole course on GitHub Actions, but it's a live course. If you get the Docker Mastery course that I teach, there is a whole couple sections. There's about 15 or so videos on GitHub Actions for Docker and Kubernetes. And then if you want more of that, if you want more GitHub Actions, I do a live course. Links are below. You can look up my live course. It's on my courses page. If you just go to bretfisher.com/courses, you can find a list of all the courses, including this live course here. And that live course is something where we're going to be scheduling it for next year, hopefully early next year in the first quarter. That's our hope, but we don't have dates yet. But sign up for that, and you can get on the waiting list if you're more interested in automating your Docker builds and your image scanning and your security and your testing and all that stuff, and then automating your deployment to Kubernetes. That's what that course is for, and that will be sometime next year. Ooh, got some recommendations on Udemy courses. Yeah, nice. Hey, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. You are awesome people. This has been a great Thanksgiving Day stream. And remember, if you haven't got all of my courses, they're all for their cheapest price of the year right here. Links below, all in the description. And, pick up a couple. And then come and hang out with us in the Discord server right there. Discord server. And hang out with 16,000 other DevOps professionals, people learning DevOps, people doing DevOps, and consider becoming a member. You can become a member in lots of ways here on YouTube, on my website, and Patreon, all those different ways. And you get benefits with Patreon and all these memberships. Even here on YouTube, you get access to special channels. And if you become a high fiver, you get to join us in a private, it's like a Zoom chat, but we do it in Discord every month. That's coming up. If you didn't know, if you join the Discord server, let me just show you that on the Discord server in our wonderful, look at these, this is all in the last 3 days. I can't keep up. People are just chatting away. I've got course questions down here I need to answer today. But one of the cool things up here is we have events. So you can now keep track of what's going on, including when I'm live streaming, including when we have our Swarm fans meetup, which is once every other month. That's a lot of fun. People that are using Swarm. And then we have monthly high fiver chats. So it's like this, but you get to be on video with me and we all hang out and talk about our DevOps projects. It happens every month, usually on a Wednesday, and we try to schedule it at the time so that the most people can attend. But in order to get into that, you need to be a member of the High Fivers Club. So go look for that on my website or on Patreon or anywhere you can find me, including here on YouTube. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, SciTech. Thanks, Kali. Thanks you all for being here. And I will see you next week with my friends back on the show. We're going to have a whole group of friends. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Well, isn't that fun? The awkward outro delay.